Oh, it's crazy how things change even in week one of the NFL season. The Dallas Cowboys 1-0 as we welcome you into Cowboys Rewind, taking a look back to the week following a 40-0 Cowboys win over the New York Giants to open the 2023 season. I'm your host, Kyle Yeomans, and we look at really one of the most historic beatdown wins that the Cowboys have ever had in their 63 years as an NFL franchise. But we also take a look ahead to their Week 2 matchup with the New York Jets. Let's start things off with quarterback Dak Prescott on what he thought about the defensive performance and what the Cowboys did helping out their offense in Week 1.
As much as I'm looking forward to it, wouldn't mind another 16-point or 6-point lead, the 16-point lead, the first two drives that you're on the field. Obviously, that serves nice. You get to keep some of your tricks in your bags and not show everything that you need to. But just playing indoors, knowing there's going to be better conditions, and being able to getting the passing game going, a lot of excitement. We've worked hard on this to get to where we are, to get as comfortable as we are as a full unit. And, plan for a lot of it to come to fruition.
After a full summer going up against the defense, what was it like watching them against another team? And then secondly, along the same lines, how much better did going up against them all summer make you?
Yeah, that was truly iron sharpens iron. They damn sure made me better, made this group better. As I was just giving credit to the receivers on understanding that they're sometimes running their routes against the pass rush. And I think that was obvious at training camp. And they understood that. It was easy for us to coach them on that when you turned on the clip and you saw how relentless our guys are rushing the passer. And then in the same sense, it was awesome. It was awesome to see somebody else back there. And at times, obviously, late in the game, felt bad for Daniel. And but that's what those guys do. They hunt. And when we get the lead, they're able to pin their ears back and go do that. And we've got great secondary guys that understand that their coverage is matched with that pass rush, and they're going to make it tough on whoever it is that we play.
Dak Prescott, of course, didn't have to do much, just had 13 completions, did not throw a touchdown, did not throw an interception. We'll see what he has to do in Week 2 against New York. But when we come back, are the expectations now sky high for this Dallas Cowboys franchise following their shutout win? We have Nick Eatman from Dallas Cowboys Storyline to tell you more about the pulse of Cowboys Nation.
Cowboys Rewind is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today. This segment is brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
A historic shutout for the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1, beating the Giants 40-0. And now the expectations are through the roof for Cowboys Nation. I'm a part of Cowboys Nation. I even get ahead of myself a little bit, looking at the expectations for this Dallas Cowboys team. Nick Eatman on Dallas Cowboys Storyline, though, even took it to a whole nother level with the phone calls this week. Let's take a look.
Sebastian from Savannah, Georgia. What's up? That's the home of Patrick Walker.
Oh, yeah. How you doing, Mr. Eamon?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm loving this show. I mean, you've grown so much even since just training camp. You guys and Derek, you guys put together some of the best teams. I'm loving all the shows. I called because I'm just taking this season one game at a time. This is the first time in a long time that I've been very excited to see a season, because of a small issue that I had with keeping Kellen Moore as a play caller was I always felt like Dak needed more time to develop, and he needed some experience over him. So I'm loving that we began the Michael McCarthy era this past game for the first time. You got to see Dak run to the sideline, talk to an experienced veteran coach, and be like, hey, what should I do next, or whatever the case is. But I really wanted to exercise the ghost of playoff pass, man. I wanted to play Aaron Rodgers so bad.
Yeah.
Well, outside of that, I have one question.
Yeah.
If all goes well, if all else goes well, obviously we're going to have a decent record. We've always had a decent record on Mike McCarthy. What would you do if we actually got into that NFC Championship game that we've been waiting for? I'm not even going to go past that.
Sebastian, you just said no. You called, the first thing you said was, I'm loving this. I'm taking it one game at a time. And now you're in the NFC Championship game.
I'm I'm just saying, we make it past the second round, and we finally get over the hurdle, because every year we've got over a smaller and smaller hurdle. If we finally get over the hurdle, what would you personally?
All right.
I ain't taking the day, but you personally, because you always say, I just want to see an NFC championship.
Right.
What would you do?
Oh.
And I haven't listened.
God, man, I love it. Thanks for the call, man, because that's what I do too. Like as a fan, I do the same thing for my Arkansas Razorbacks. Say I'm not gonna get upset, I'm not gonna get mad. It doesn't matter. This game doesn't matter. And I find myself, I've already broke the remote control in the first minute of the game or whatever. I do that all the time. I try to not, just calm down, whatever. Just like you did. Sebastian was like, I'm just one game at a time. We're gonna be good. All that. And a championship game. 37 seconds later, I love it. That's you can't help it because the excitement is there and it should be there. I think, smell the roses, have fun. This is a trip from one coast to the other, okay? You're on a drive, you're started in California or whatever, and you're going, how about, let's change it. You started in the East Coast, and you're driving all the way to Vegas. That's where you want to end up. But along the way, enjoy it. Enjoy the states. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy all that because this is great. This is a great experience. What would happen if they make it to the championship game? I don't know because I've never been there. But it's going to be epic for sure.
Cowboy storyline was made for moments like that as the fans, of course, very excited following their 40-0 win over the Giants as we welcome in Nick Eatman here to Cowboys Rewind. Nick, you were on the phone line.
Yeah.
Fans sometimes can't help themselves after the biggest shutout victory in Cowboys history. But is that a realistic expectation that Cowboys Nation should be looking forward to?
Well, probably to the point of they're going to be competing for it. I think that game showed what it can do, but also, that's some of the stuff that I get on those calls. And I had some fun there with that caller. I had to yell at him a little bit, but the thing is that I've been there. That's what I explained. That's what I do all the time. You want to just stay, grounded. Hey, it's not going to be a big deal. One game at a time. It's a long season. And then a game like that happens and you're like, well, maybe what if they could make it to the Super Bowl or the championship game or whatever. And I think that's just kind of a natural thought process because when you beat somebody 40-0 in week one in an anticipated game like that in the rain, there's some signs of maybe this could be the year. And I don't fault the fans for thinking that way.
This is the fourth shutout in Cowboys history of at least 35 points or more. The previous three all came in seasons where the Cowboys did make an appearance in the Super Bowl. So it's not too far off. They have a chance. They have a chance to get to that point.
Am I going to see that in Big Facts? Is that going to be in one of the Big Facts?
It's on Big Facts, DallasCowboys.com. Check it out. But when you talk about it, Nick, in the Super Bowl expectations, what part of this team is going to lead them to that Super Bowl expectations?
Well, I think it was the zero part. The defense. That is the side of the ball that obviously looks like a little bit ahead of the offense. Hard to tell in a game like that because that game is not going to be normal. It's not going to be 23-0 in the second quarter. It's not going to be raining like that in at least half the games. We know that for sure. So I think that you can throw some of this stuff out of it, but the defense usually travels. The Micah Parsons getting around the edge, these guys doing different things with what Dan Quinn's going to be implementing, that is always going to be there, and I think that's the part that's going to be pretty consistent for this defense.
Yeah, there's lots to look forward to. All playmakers all the way through that defense, all three levels taken care of for Dan Quinn and company. We're taking care of Nick Eatman doing a great job on Cowboys Storyline and, of course, today on Cowboys Rewind. Appreciate you joining us. When we come back, we have Nick Harris from Talking Cowboys break down that Cowboys defense, some of the key matchups for Dallas against the New York Jets in Week 2.
This segment was brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back into Cowboys Rewind from the Star in Frisco. I'm your host, Kyle Yeomans. Now, we got a chance to look at the expectations early on for this Cowboys team as a whole. It was the defense that led the way, said Nick Eatman in our most recent segment. Now let's turn things over to Nick Harris about how those expectations change with not only the superstars on that side of the ball, but also some of the role players that have filled in the gaps nicely for Dan Quinn.
I'm the same. Expectations are still the same for me because when we came into the season, we expected them to be great, and that's what they gave us in week 1. I don't think we're going to get the level of that greatness week in and week out, but it's something I've been kind of thinking about the last couple of days. What would be a disappointing effort, game by game for this defense? And I think back to the Houston game last year. I think back to the Jacksonville game last year, or even Green Bay in the second half. And what were the causes of all those effects? It was lack of depth, and they had that depth now, whether that be in the secondary, whether that be on the defensive line, second level, whatever. They have those pieces now. So my expectation is for them not to have a lapse like they had like last year on multiple occasions. Like, sure, over a 17-game season, you're going to have a bad day. That will happen. But when it happens 3-4 games in a row, then, that's when it gets a little worrisome to me. That's my expectation, is that does not happen on a week-to-week basis. And we didn't see that week 1. So I think we saw the greatest of what this product could look in week 1.
From the set of Talking Cowboys, Nick Harris now joins us on Cowboys Rewind. And Nick, for the most part, this defense showed that they have those levels. They have depth on that side of the ball. Who was most impressive out of that depth in the week 1 win, 40-0 over the Giants?
I think you would have to go with the defensive line, right? 7 sacks definitely speaks volumes as to what this group was able to put together. And it started early, and it started with the best player on the defensive line, Micah Parsons. Even though some want to classify him as a linebacker, I'm going to give him the edge rusher title. He came in for his first sack of the season and gave his first little lion celebration coming out of that on a big third down. And then it was guys like Osa Odigizua, Dorrance Armstrong, DeMarcus Lawrence. Everybody got involved on that defensive line, not only in the pass rush game, but in the run game as well, limiting Saquon Barkley.
Micah Parsons had 6 of the Cowboys' 23 pressures in that matchup. 23 pressures on 37 total dropbacks. That's the biggest percentage by a single team in a single game in the NFL since 2019. The Cowboys got after the Giants. Can they do have that same sort of success this week against the New York Jets?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the pass rush going into the game against the Jets, but the run game, that's going to be what's really tested. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, that duo of Jets running backs coming into the season, that's something we were keeping an eye on as one of the better tandems in the entire NFL, and we saw it on Monday night against the Bills. Breece Hall rattling off over 100 yards. Dalvin Cook with efficient running as well in short yardage situations. So the middle of that interior defensive line, and as well as that second level with the linebacker group, Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark, those guys are going to be tested. I think the run game is going to be something to keep an eye on.
Can you expect more from first-round pick Mazi Smith this week? He played a limited number of snaps, had a tackle, had a pressure, but at the same time, for a first-round pick, you haven't seen a whole lot of him just yet. How can he play a role against New York?
Yeah, absolutely. When Mazi Smith was brought in here, it was brought in as a developmental project. But at the same time, Mazi Smith brings those rush defense tendencies and traits to this defensive line. I want to see him get some action on Sunday. I believe if you just put his body in there, the wide frame that he has, he can fill in those A-gaps and stop those running lanes before they get going.
And also, how imperative is it to get the outside and set the edge for some of these edge rushers like Micah, like DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, to try and help bottle up the run?
It'll be really important because it's still important in the pass game, being able to get those guys involved and set those edges, but also in the run game as well. Breece Hall's really good outside zone. He wants to bounce out to the outside and find running lanes in the secondary. If you can seal off those edges with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, who I feel is the best run defender on that defensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence, then I think you're going to find success against him.
Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com beat writer and an analyst on Talking Cowboys, 9 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. When we come back, we check in with Amber Garcia on how the Cowboys secondary is looking, possibly getting some veterans back from injury in week 2. After a shutout victory in week 1, the Dallas defense, it's hard to believe they can get even better, but they're missing some of their best players in the secondary, like Donovan Wilson, like Jordan Lewis. So when those guys come back, what is the role for Jordan Lewis and Donovan Wilson? Let's hand things over to Cowboys Break, who breaks down just exactly what Jordan Lewis could see when he returns to the field.
I even wonder what's the role for a guy like Jordan Lewis, particularly on a week like this where my suspicion is that the Jets will go into this game thinking we want to run. We want to run a lot. And it makes me wonder if Dallas is going to be in a situation where defensively they want to go heavy more. And maybe they want to have an extra defensive lineman, an extra linebacker, an extra safety, more so than having that third cornerback on the field because of the running game that the Jets pose the problems that running game can pose. It makes me wonder, like, what would be his role this week as a fourth cornerback, presumably in this rotation right now.
Where my mind goes with that is an excellent point that brought up last week when it came to Jordan Lewis is the package against the Saints, where it was Jordan Lewis spying Alvin Kamara. So when you look at the skill set of a guy like Breece Hall, who can be explosive out of the backfield, Dalvin Cook, who can be an explosive receiver out of the backfield as well, Jordan Lewis has shown that he can spy those guys effectively. So maybe that's a potential role for him in a game like this.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, this kind of has been his story in his career, where something else happens and he's kind of left out in a way, but yet he finds a way to be back in the group. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, the coaches know Dan Quinn has kept him here for a reason. He knows the talent that he has. He will be used this season. And I trust the decision that they make in whatever time or week they decide to go ahead and plug him in, because you can't have too many of those guys. And you were talking about who are you going to dress, who you're going to sit.
Right.
I mean, it does sound simple, but it is a problem to a good problem to have, a great problem to have. So, and it's one of those scenarios that we haven't always had that in past previous years, where we're sitting here like, man, you're sitting out a really talented player. Who else are you going to play in? You have so many weapons, so it's something super exciting.
I think you heard her there on Cowboys Break. Now you get her on Cowboys Rewind. Amber Garcia joins us. And Amber, you talked about Jordan Lewis in the clip. You talked about some of the roles he could potentially play. Do you expect him to be back in the fold in week 2? And what type of role could we see him against the Jets?
Yeah, well, he says he's 100% to go. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys really decide to manage his comeback. We see a lot of the young guys playing really, really well. So it's going to be hard to make that switch. You don't want to take those young guys out, but you want to put a guy like Jordan back on the field. He's a playmaker. He's very, very talented and skilled. I think they will probably use him kind of in rotation, in and out, different packages, and just see how he goes. I don't think you put him out there the whole time. And that way you still balance the progression of these younger guys to keep playing at that level.
Jordan Lewis hopefully back in the fold. Of course, you look at Deron Bland, one of those young guys stepping up. He had 5 interceptions as a rookie, and then you turn around and he has a pick in week 1 as well that he took back to the house for the pick 6. So it's not a necessity to get Jordan Lewis back in the fold early, but a veteran presence on this defense that would certainly be welcome. You also want to see if Donovan Wilson can get back in the fold at the safety position. Do you expect a bigger role for Donovan this week? First time we've seen him in pads since he was injured back in training camp. Can he add an extra element to this Cowboys defense?
Absolutely. He's progressed to being limited. He's a guy that is one of my personal favorite players of all time. He's here with the Cowboys. He's aggressive. He does not have a single hair of fear. He will go out there and just elevate your defense. We saw it last year, what he did to the position. So he's a guy that you want out there. Now, I'm not quite sure if they will keep him or have him playing every single snap the whole game. I think this might be another case where you still kind of slowly bring him back in. It's been a while since he's been on the field. So I think they handle injuries pretty well, and I don't think this will be any different. They'll know how many plays to give him and just slow him back into the mix, especially when you're not struggling on defense. You're not struggling. There's no need to rush him. So I think hopefully we'll be able to start seeing him this weekend.
He's really that enforcer on the back end of the Cowboys defense. A big priority this offseason was re-signing Donovan Wilson. There's a reason for that. As we bring Amber Garcia in for Cowboys Rewind, you can catch her on Cowboys Break, 11 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday on DallasCowboys.com. But when we come back, we talk about the matchups to watch. Who should you keep your eyes on Sunday afternoon? Cowboys getting ready to play the Jets in Week 2. Welcome back into the final segment of Cowboys Rewind. I'm Kyle Yeomans, taking a look ahead now to the Cowboys Week 2 matchup with the New York Jets. 3:25 kickoff on CBS from AT&T Stadium. Some big-time matchups on the way for 2 interconference rivals. You look at one side, it's CeeDee Lamb versus Sauce Gardner, depending on if they match up together in the slot or outside. That should be a whole lot of fun. But then on the offensive side, you have matchups with Garrett Wilson versus this Cowboys cornerback room with Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore. But my matchup to watch It's Tony Pollard, and it's the ground game for the Dallas Cowboys. Can they get the ball rolling on the ground and control time of possession? With as good as this Jets defense is, there are so many ways that they can take the football away, and one of those is by stopping the run in the middle. Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, will try and slow down that man. Tony Pollard and company, along with Rico Dowdle, along with Deuce Vaughn, who could be sprinkled in there as well. If the Cowboys can control the time of possession, I think they'll come out 2-0 going into week 3 and a matchup next week. But they got to take care of the football. Do not turn it over and win the time of possession in order to do that. Before we say goodbye, though, here on Cowboys Rewind, want to give a shout out to our camera operator and all-around talent in the production side, Terrence Williams, working his final show for DallasCowboys.com. We're going to miss you with the Dallas Cowboys, but he's going on to big things, taking a job at ESPN. We'll see him down the road, no doubt about it. Appreciate everything you've done for us and this entire department, Terrence. I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long from the Star in Frisco. We'll see you next week on Cowboys Rewind.
Cowboys Rewind was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit SWBCmortgage.com to find a pro today.